Today we're in our second series of idea creation, or second part of our ideas creation series. Anywho, this one here is on a particular heuristic. Look it up, it's cool. On MATCEMIB. All right, doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way that Scamper does, but it does have some really amazing applications that you can use for developing solutions to problems. Okay, so before we get into it, let's stick back and explain why it is and how it came about, because these kind of histories and how they came about are relevant. It's MATCEMIB was a process or heuristic that's developed by a old Russian guy in about the 1950s, right? And much like Albert Einstein, he used to work in a patent office where he would see lots of new ideas and solutions coming across his desk. After some time working in this place, right, he started to see a number of similarities, and in his own mind, he started to categorize these differently. And each one of these letters represents a different category of how people have solved problems in the past. And because of that, it's a really good way of looking at problems if we're wanting to create new solutions for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through, I'm just going to name each one of these letters, and then I'll explain those in a little more detail. Right? M is for mechanical solutions to problems. Right? And then from there, it all starts getting a little bit fuzzy. Right? A is acoustic, T is thermal. Let's see if I can actually remember all of these. C is chemical, E is electronic or electric, M is magnetic, and from there things start getting a bit fuzzy, more fuzzy. I is intermolecular, and B is biomechanical. B, biological. All right, that does make a whole lot more sense. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to look at these in a little more detail. I'm going to pop myself down in the corner here, and then we'll get into it. So how does this work? As we're going to go through all of these different categories, what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at them with a particular problem in mind so that you can do the same when you're doing your task that you need to be doing. So what do we have? Right, what is our problem? Our task is problem is barnacles on the boat. Right, getting barnacles off boats can be quite difficult. We're wanting to scrape them off without damaging the hull itself. So that's our problem. Let's look at some potential solutions. Mechanical, hopefully some mechanical ones should be coming straight to mind, probably because I've just said it, right? You can scrape it off with the back of the shovel. The problem is that does cause some damage, so there's actually a whole bunch of other mechanical solutions that aren't just hitting it really heavily, right? There's gravitational forces that we can use. There's collisions, which is what the shovel option was. You can use vibrations, right? We can just vibrate the heck out of that boat somehow and vibrate them off using shock waves, wind, vacuums, the list goes on, right? These are a whole bunch of different mechanical ways that you can use to solve this problem. So from mechanical, we go on to acoustic. We can use sound and ultrasonic waves to be able to knock these barnacles off, right? T is thermal. We get ourselves a blowtorch and heat them off, but thermal doesn't always mean hot. We can also cool them off. We can freeze them off using liquid nitrogen, right? Exothermic reactions, endothermic reactions. There's some really cool stuff that we can use here, right? Look it up if you don't know what it means. You could possibly help you with your assignment. Okay, C is for chemical, right? That all starts getting very theoretical at this point for you guys, but with chemical reactions, catalysts, straight up dissolving things. changing colors using pH inhibitors to make a change to these barnacles, right? There's a whole bunch of different things that we can use there to solve this problem. Electric, right? Electrostatic charges, superconductivity, piezos, woo, they're fun, right? If you don't understand what some of the stuff means, you might be able to look it up. If you don't really care, that's fine. You can move on to the next one, but I need you to be able to use some of this in some way, all right? There's some really great alternatives here. M is for magnetic, right? So immediately we always start to think of like these little black magnets that we've got and creating magnetic forces and magnetic waves and whatnot. But we can take that further. We can talk about using X-rays and microwaves, right? There's all sorts of things here that we can use to solve these problems when we start to dig deeper. And this is where it starts to get really fun. Cool. Talking about fun, this is where things start getting really messy. Intermolecular, right? This is kind of when we're getting right down to our periodic table, to our subatomic layers, right? Nanoparticles, capillary actions, right? There's some cool stuff that's happening here. Make use of it. Biological things, right? We can use microbes to be able to eat away at the these organisms. A large part of some of the main solutions that we use in life are actually biological, right? Thinking about compost heaps, large parts of our waste treatment plants, our sewage plants are biological. We've got our biomass reactors that are part of those that break down organisms and solve these problems for us. They can put, it's a really good kind of often out in left field. We don't normally think about it, but there's a whole bunch of things happening here that we can use to solve problems. All right. And that, in a nutshell, is MATCEMIB. It's a method of being able to look down at a problem and saying, could I solve it using this thing out here? Could I solve it using this thing out here? Could I solve it using something that I often kind of overlook and forget? It's a great way of breaking things down. All right. So now that you've got a little bit of an understanding of what MATCEMIB is, take it away, go and use it to create some cool ideas. If you're watching this because you're part of my class, that means there should be theoretically down here somewhere a thing popping up with your work on it